What were some of your favorite books as a teenager?
Oh, well, let's see. I love The Great Gatsby. I've probably read that, a dozen times. Of course, Pride and Prejudice. And there are things like Go Ask Alice, but it's kind of weird because when I was a teen, there weren't as many teen books as there are now. So we kind of went from, middle grade books and then we jumped into the classics and adult books.
Well, what are some of your favorite contemporary young adult books or authors?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question because there's so many. Well, I love Cecil Castellucci, who I know you interviewed. I just read Fat Vampire by Adam Rex. And, another book that I just read that I loved was Unwind by Neil Shusterman. So I'm kind of like all over the place in terms of reading. I like all different kinds of genres.
What drew you to write young adult fiction rather than adult fiction?
Well, it's kind of weird because I didn't realize I was writing young adult fiction. With my first book, Millicent and Girl Genius, my editor, Arthur Levine, he's the editor of the Harry Potter series. I kept asking him, okay, who's my target audience and what am I writing for and this and that? And he just said, write the story it needs to be. So when I wrote that novel, I thought it was like for adults, really. And I was surprised that it ended up being middle grade young adults. So I tend to write stories, and then I guess because I've never matured past high school, that it ends up being for teens and tweens.
Since you say that you kind of aren't always sure, or you thought it was for an adult audience, do you ever worry about content? Because a lot of teen books get banned, and do you ever feel like you're self-censoring at all, or worry about how it will be received?
Well, when I wrote Absolutely Maybe, originally that was supposed to be, I signed a contract for it and everything for a middle grade novel, and then I just got into the story so much that it morphed into a young adult novel without me even realizing what I was doing. But my editors, Arthur Levine and Cheryl Klein, were fine with it because that was what the story needed to be, and that's what they're all about, is the story needs to be true to itself. And so even though the content of that book is not appropriate for, say, anybody under 12, they said, fine, let's go with that.
I saw on your website you had a lot of different jobs, from inventor to hand model. Were you writing all during that time, or did that something that you started later?
I was writing stories and not sending them in or anything. I've always been a writer. I wrote for television, I've been a journalist, I've written for advertising, but what I really wanted to do was write books, and I didn't get serious about that until, I had a career as, doing all sorts of other kinds of writing. And I realized there's no good time to start. I always had excuses. I was really great with excuses for not writing. And I realized, you know what, I just got to do this. And so I sat down and I started writing, and I was lucky enough to hook up with an editor who was terrific and stayed with me, because it took me 6 years to write my first novel.
Wow. So what was the process of that like, from, finishing your novel to actually getting it published?
Well, what happened was I sent Arthur something through the slush pile, and that's when you don't have an agent or anything, you just send something in and keep your fingers crossed and pray a lot. And he pulled it out and he said, this one isn't quite right for us, but if you have a different book, I'd love to see it, and I'm going to be your editor someday. So I told him about a story that I had, and I said, I'll send you the first 3 chapters and a synopsis. If you like it, I'll send you the rest. And he said, great. I sent it in. He said, I love this, send the rest of the book in. And I said, there isn't any rest of the book. I implied that there was, but I haven't finished it. And that's why it took so long. So actually, he worked with me from the very beginning, from those first 3 chapters. And he stuck with me, and there was a year that I didn't write at all because I had a baby, and I was really busy with work and everything. But so it was a really long process. But now it doesn't take me 6 years to write a novel. Now I can write one a lot faster because it's my full-time job now.
So what's an average writing day for you? Do you have set disciplined time, or do you just kind of write when it strikes you?
I write every day. There's a lot of goofing off involved. There's a lot of Facebook and surfing the web. But I tend to think, okay, that's part of my process. It's like if you're an athlete, and say you're a high jumper, you just don't walk up and jump. You gotta, warm up and all that kind of stuff. So I have to do all that kind of stuff, answer my email. My real serious writing, though, usually gets started around 11 at night to like 3 in the morning.
Wow.
I'm one of those night people.
What advice would you give to aspiring young adult authors?
You know, just write. And I know this sounds, it's easier to say than it is to do, but no matter how bad it is, just get something on paper or get something on that computer, because you know what, you can always revise. And I mean, my first drafts are so awful, but I know that I'm going to rewrite them, and if you don't have anything down there, you can't change it. So you just have to get it on paper. And to also try to finish something. I know I was wonderful at getting started, and I would lose interest in things. I would start books and I'd lose interest. So nowadays, I always write my endings first, and that way I can head toward them. And everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to have a different process, but that's what I do. I know that I'm also motivated by deadlines. So my publisher will give me a deadline, but if you're in a writing group, or even if you're telling something you're writing something, if you can say, and I'm going to do this many words or this many pages by the end of the week, it kind of helps give you a goal.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You keep a blog and have a fairly updated website, and I found that more in young adult authors than adult authors. Do you feel that it's important to kind of keep that to connect with your readers?
I do think so, because it's not like we have a book out every day. I mean, it takes a year or so. So it's a way to keep in touch, and I know for me it's just a lot of fun. I used to keep journals and diaries when I was younger, and now I've got this blog, and I blog, at least twice a week, and I take a lot of pictures, and then in fact, I can show you, since we're in my office, I have these huge binders, and I print out my blogs and I put them in here, and for me it's like my diary now.
That's really cool.
I remember where I was, who I met, and I can see pictures of it, and I've got all these binders of my blog in there. So I do it as much as I'm destroying my office. I do it as much for myself as I do for my friends and my fans.
A lot of the other authors I've talked to so far have talked about kind of community of young adult writers. Do you have, do you feel that there is that, and that you are a part of it, kind of interacting with each other?
Oh, definitely. I found that the YA authors are so great and very generous with their times and critiques and things like that. In Los Angeles, for example, there's a group called the LAYAs, LA Young Adult Authors, and we meet at different times for parties or at bookstore signings and things like that, and we get together and we swap stories and things like that, and it's really fun. It's real nice. I have not met any YA authors who are horrible or anything like that. Everybody is just really supportive of each other.
Projects now?
I'm going to be starting on a new YA novel that's going to come out in 2012. It doesn't have a title yet. It's a mystery novel. I know what the ending is going to be. I'm not sure what's going to happen before that to get the person there, but that'll be from Arthur A. Levine Books.
Cool.
And I've got a middle grade novel that's going to come out called Warp Speed. In fact, you're the first person to hear that, because we just figured out the name. It's called Warp Speed, and it's about a Star Trek geek. And that'll come out in, I think, March of next year.
What's the defining, is it a reading level that really marks the line between middle grade and young adult?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think it's a lot of it is content and swear words. I mean, if there's swearing, but I think a lot of it is content. But there's kind of a gray area, because I'll have kids who are 11 read my YA stuff. I'll have teenagers read my middle grade stuff. It really depends on the person, but overall I would say it would be content.